he said sort of treat your feelings and emotions and your headspace as a garage. And if your garage is completely full at home, you open up the door and you see what's there and you start going to work at sort of emptying it.
Personally, I've been in therapy for 3 or 4 years now, and I can't really see how I would operate without it, in terms of I need that person to be a sounding board and be able to say this is what's going on. And
those routines and those that self-care is so important during a season, which then I know when I'm doing that I'm playing better because I'm just in a better space generally.
It's actually a sign of strength now if you can speak up, and I think the onus is on us as senior group and PCA reps and captains amongst us that allow those doors to be open, especially for those younger people coming through.
Don't let it get to rock bottom, or I have to take this journey now because I'm in such a dark place. I think there's enough of a network out there now to be able to hopefully identify it early through the education that there is now, but then actually being brave enough to speak about it before you potentially hit your rock bottom, I think is incredibly important.
Hi, my name's Kiran Carlson. We're here with the PCA to talk about mental health for Mental Health Awareness Week, and the topic is about action, how we can take action as men in sport. Joined by Chris Wood, Miles Hammond and Brett D'Oliveira, and we're going to be just talking about some things we've experienced and some things we do to help our mental health and our well-being. So lads, obviously it's a big topic at the minute, and as people in professional sport, we have to worry about it quite a lot and take care of it. So I was just wondering if we could ask the question, what do you guys do in order to look after your mental health, your well-being, and how could that potentially help people when we're talking about taking action?
Things that I do and identified over the year, I think it was well documented that I had an 11-year gambling addiction, which ultimately put me in a position of very low self-worth. And over the years, I've come around to techniques to get myself in the right headspace to be able to, one, do my job, but live my life on a manageable way. And I think a lot of things that I struggle with, around feelings and emotions, whether they're good, bad or indifferent emotions, and having people close to me, around me, who understand my situation and, when things aren't going as well as maybe they should be or could be mentally, I can offload and get some advice and get me back in the middle of the boat, as per se.
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what's just been said there, struggling with anxiety and loss as well. The hardest thing, I think, for us blokes as well sometimes is actually just speaking up and talking to people, whether that be through therapy or just your mates, your family. And the other thing is getting to understand how you're feeling and what gets you into sort of a better headspace, I suppose. So things like deleting Instagram or sticking to your routines, doing all your fitness and stuff like that. Just to there are loads of different action points that you can do. It's just about finding out which ones. Well, for me, it's about finding out which ones work.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just on that, there was one thing my sponsor sort of said to me in recovery, and he said, sort of treat your feelings and emotions and your headspace as a garage. And if your garage is completely full at home, you open up the door and you see what's there and you start going to work at sort of emptying it. And that analogy stayed with me massively. And I can feel when things get too much. And Miles talked about anxiety there, and those things creep in. Often that's because something period in my life or some element of my life is becoming overwhelming. And I open up that garage and try and have a look at what's going on, and try and empty it as quickly as possible. That was one analogy that's always stuck with me.
It's funny, I've had a very similar one, which was if you go into a house full of balloons, you open up the first door, a load of balloons come out the room, and then you've got to go and open the next door, and then the next. Yeah. So it's about, I suppose the opening door is talking, understanding, trying to find out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I personally struggled a bit with panic attacks and stuff like that a few years ago. It's because a lot of my self-worth, like you were talking about, was tied into cricket. So it would be, I think I grew up playing cricket from a young age, whatever, and being a pro from a younger age. It was always kind of tied into, if I perform well, I'm therefore worthy of praise and worthy of people's love and stuff like that. And I think that's, as a professional cricketer, probably goes unmentioned, the fact that they see the fact you're a pro and you are living the dream, and the gratitude behind that is obviously massive, but it can weigh heavy if you don't have the right outlook, and definitely family life and and making sure you have people around you who are close to you to be able to, offload. And I know personally I've been in therapy for 3 or 4 years now, and I can't really see how I would operate without it, in terms of I need that person to be a sounding board and be able to say this is what's going on and just vent freely. And I don't know, have you guys got any other tips and tricks in terms of that, kind of relating it back to cricket, in terms of in the season, obviously playing a lot, training a lot, family time is sparse. How do you guys kind of manage your mental health and well-being through all that?
I think balance is really important, and how you get that. And that's going to be different for every individual. I think for me, balance is about spending time at home with 2 kids and a missus. And then obviously away from that is your close family and friends. And you can do that in various ways, whether it's golf, fitness, or, paddle, or however you want to do it. I think it's just understanding what makes you tick and what makes you calm down. And when you feel a little bit anxious or you feel a little bit overwhelmed, it's about talking to those people around you.
I mean, I'd 100% echo that, and go back to the first point. I think it's going to therapy actually sort of gave me the tools to then increase my well-being or make my mental health better. I always thought that it was sort of a level thing that everyone had that I didn't, but it was actually you can do stuff to improve it. And when you're feeling like things are going on top of you, especially in the English county season, there's not a whole lot of space, like we always say, to get away from the game and recalibrate. But finding those things that you can do to sort of bring yourself back to you a little bit more, I think is really important.
Yeah, I kind of see cricket now as slightly, I use it in a real positive way. It's almost like an escape for me into a place where I feel very, very comfortable now. Sort of inactive addiction, I used to never want to be at cricket because I wanted to be everywhere else to be able to do what I needed to do in that moment of time. But now I'm in a position of, recovery and a lot more comfortable with myself. A lot of my issues actually come outside of cricket, just normal day-to-day life, not necessarily the pressures of performing in cricket. So I actually find the going to the ground, the competitive environment, everything that comes with playing cricket, I actually find that as a little bit of a safe space now. And one thing that I've actually got to identify and probably look when life becomes beyond cricket, because I talk about a lot of my issues come away from the game. When cricket's not there anymore, what is that going to be that is going to give me that self-fulfillment, that, feeling of purpose? When that's taken away, where's my mental health going to be in that situation? Now, I'm hopeful through, having a sponsor and going to therapy groups and talking about it. Because even before we came into this room and sit down and talk about it, I was anxious to, obviously we've all chatted before and we all kind of know each other's situations, but that feeling of actually speaking that first word around a group like this, when you get in that environment and you actually do it, that anxiety seems to lift. Well, it does for me anyway. And I know I'll go away from this room after, get on the train and go home, and I'll feel a sense of, satisfaction for speaking about it or just voicing my opinion on it. But yeah, I find that very interesting, how I can build something up to be something way more than it actually is. Yeah. And then the act of always thinking that the worst thing is going to happen. So whenever I go into something, this can't go right, then 99.9% of the time it does. And you go away thinking, well, what was all the worry about? Yeah. That's my day-to-day life. Yeah.
I actually got some advice recently about overthinking, and human tendency is to overthink always the bad outcome, always. No one ever overthinks what could go really well, about how this could go all smoothly, all the mics work, everything's fine, nobody's nervous, nobody overthinks how good it could go. Yeah. It's always overthinking how bad it could go and how bad it could be. I guess it's a good point as well about the stigma. Obviously gets talked about a lot, men's mental health, not talking about it. I know my experience, and having gone through some potentially harder times, and then to be at a place now where I'm confident and having pretty good mental health and well-being, I think you do get more comfortable. And I think as you do it, and it's fully practice, I think. When I first started trying to talk about it, I couldn't talk about it with my parents, let alone 3 people that I'm potentially going to be playing against in the summer. I could think of absolutely nothing worse than trying to open up. I reckon just because it's been 3 or 4 years of continually doing it over and over, it's a learnt thing. So I guess if people are going to be watching this and they feel as if they do need support, or they feel as though they do want to speak more, it is almost just taking that first step, I guess, because that is all that's going to be the hardest bit is kind of initially doing it. So we've talked about wellbeing and mental health in a kind of a broad spectrum, but in terms of us as cricket players, what sort of impact would it have on our performance in terms of obviously long season, a lot of games? How has it affected you negatively / positively in your careers so far, would you say?
We spoke about it a little bit there, but I think, look good and feel good. I know that sounds a bit cheesy at times, or a bit cliche, but I think that really does work. And I think if you can get yourself into a really good headspace, that's just as important. And I think if you can do that more often than not, or at least know how you do that and how you get yourself into the best place, that's only going to stand you in good stead throughout such a volatile season, let's say, because those games come thick and fast. We all know that, and we all know there's peaks and troughs throughout a season. So it's about being able to sort of get yourself back up into the best headspace as possible to allow you to go out there and perform.
Yeah, like I think one of the big things I've found is like self-care. Like like you always hear about it in terms of like going to a spa and getting your nails done and whatever. But like for me, self-care is like really like it's right getting up and making my bed or doing the washing up, or like it's funny how easy those little things are to like let go. And if I'm doing that over a course of a season and properly taking care of myself, because it's so easy just to like you feel and you go for 10 pints and try and forget about it, and then the next day like you're up again 100 overs in the dirt, like nothing's changed. But actually like those routines and those like that self-care is so important during a season, which then like I know when I'm doing that I'm playing better because I'm just in a better space generally. Like if you go to work and you're feeling like the whole time, you're not going to be very good. So yeah, it's just like trying to look after yourself, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's had I'd like to think a positive impact on performance for sure, being in a space of being comfortable with myself. I talked about earlier about acting on emotion, good, bad or indifferent, whereas on a cricket field now I kind of act on instinct, as opposed to we're always going to have good days, bad days and different days. And those days used to eat me up all the time. But, being in recovery and comfortable in my own skin, I actually walk onto a cricket field and just dare to play cricket, as opposed to there to play against my mind and that mental battle that I'm sure we've all had on a cricket field. It's actually just to be that free spirit and understand that, cricket is an unbelievable game that's there to be enjoyed.
Yeah, definitely. I think big thing for me has been that enjoyment side of it. I think, getting to terms with the fact that cricket's also a failure-based sport, that like you very rarely get 100 or take a fifer, and the majority of the time it will be indifferent / bad. But knowing that shouldn't actually mean you have a bad day, you can still turn up to the ground with a good attitude, speak to your mates, have a coffee, all this stuff. Those easy wins that can actually mean you have a good day, irregardless of how many runs or wickets you take. And I think that the gratitude side of things, about how it's very easy just to get into this rhythm in a bubble, especially in professional sport, where you think it's the be all and end all and that's the only thing that matters in life. Whereas actually, if you just take it with a bit of a bigger lens, it always helps me that I'm living, if look back 15 years ago, childhood Kiran would have been, wow, this is so cool. So do that, and that gives me a bit of gratitude to be able to say, actually, if I get 3 ducks in a row, I'm still kind of living my dream, even though it is cliche. But all those little tricks that, even though it feels like you are tricking your brain, it does help. And it feels cliche to do at the time, but no, they definitely help me.
Our numbers of like people going to therapy or like seeking help, like might get taken like in a negative light, but I actually think the reason is because we're so good at talking about it. Like we've had Tom Smith, who's a massive part of our change room, like quite publicly have like a really tough time, and his strength. First of all, I remember his strength to talk about it to the group, and then that almost like opens a door for everyone else, and now it's like not a taboo subject like it used to be. It's really open. Like you can talk about you're struggling one day. People will be there to support you and everything like that. So I think going back to what we talk about having leaders in the change room and like almost like trying to create an environment. Like it's almost so important to take that first step to then open the door for everyone else. Like that's how it felt at Gloucester.
Yeah, I'd say in terms of Woody's point about being yourself, I'd say one thing when I first started, I know you definitely put on a bit of a face because they were senior players and you wanted to act in a certain way and be a certain type of character, and coaches would push you to be hard-nosed and tough and all this stuff. And I think that's slowly creeping out. And I know myself being a bit older now and younger guys coming into the changing room, all I want is for them to kind of be themselves. And I think that will aid in them being able to say, yeah, I've had a really bad day, I need to speak to someone. And the good thing about PCA and all the clubs now is that there's loads of stuff in place. I know at Glamorgan we've got 2 psychologists, we've got Lindsay, we've got head of science and medicine that can refer you. I think there's so many avenues now where if you are able to be yourself, to be comfortable, you can approach someone and there will be someone in that dressing room who can help you find the support you might need. And sometimes it is as easy as going for a beer with someone and having an open conversation without it turning into, well, why didn't we hit our lengths better today? It's more about kind of, okay, how do we feel? How are we doing this? And yeah, definitely important.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's definitely evolving. 5-10 years ago, not many people said a word. And I think the only good thing, and the thing I look back and, can you try and help someone through giving your advice and experience is one thing I'll look back and just go, was I able to maybe empower somebody along the way to talk up who's struggling? I think we're definitely in a position now where people are identifying more when they're not quite right, as opposed to 10 years ago, maybe not having an understanding whatsoever of how they're feeling. So I think it's definitely moving in the right direction, but as per anything in life, it's got further to go.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that's been said. I think, you look back at the start of my career and like you've all sort of said that or alluded to, that there was definitely a bit of a stigma around it and you were sort of considered weak if you admitted anything like that. But I think that's come such a full journey now and it's come such a long way that it's actually a sign of strength now if you can speak up. And I think the onus is on us as senior group and PCA reps and captains amongst us that allow those doors to be open, especially for those younger people coming through, because we know how hard that cricket journey can be at times. So for senior people to speak up and show their vulnerability at times is a real sign of strength, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's the realisation as well that it actually makes people play better cricket. If you're thinking it as people who are more comfortable, more happy being open and honest with their teammates, they're going to play better because they're going to enjoy it more. And I think that's the kind of chicken and the egg with the whole thing, is that actually it's going to positively impact teams. If you as an individual take care of yourself, take care of your mental health and your well-being, you're going to be able to last more through the season and be able to put in more performances for your team, which is essentially what we are here for at the end of the day, I guess. In terms of like taking action when you are struggling, I remember when I first got into kind of therapy and felt like I needed it, I kind of went via the club. So I went to talk to my DOC and kind of said I need some support, and then got put in touch with a therapist, and he's actually working at the club now as well, so it's kind of a joint thing. But yeah, it was one of those where there was an avenue to take and I just had to take it at that point. It was kind of, I probably let it get too far in terms of I didn't tackle it early. It was kind of the last resort type of thing because otherwise I just felt like I couldn't do it. I was like, well, I just need to kind of get help now, and Wally, my DOC, was the only kind of option there. How about you guys? What have you kind of found in terms of the support?
Yeah, I was just thinking of examples really in my own head. I think I look back to a teammate that, at the start of that journey, it was just a simple question of like, how you doing, mate? Are you okay? And it would start off with a blanket sort of, yeah, I'm fine. And then you'd sort of do that continuously over, the course of a month and a half. And then all of a sudden there's a bit of sort of self-admittance that they're not okay. And I think that's really important, that you keep asking, is everything okay? Can I help you? Just being a sort of an avenue to explore if needed. And then from that example, that led to them sort of going to seek help through the club and then referred on to somebody else. And I think when speaking to that person now, they would admit that they weren't in a great place at all then, and they've come such a full journey. So my point being is to, the onus is on you to obviously be in a good headspace, but you've also got a a huge squad to check in on and make sure that they're okay. And that doesn't matter whether you're a senior player or a younger player, whoever you are in that group. There's no harm in just checking in on your peers.
Yeah, I'd echo exactly what you said. But one thing that stuck out, what you said there, is I didn't have any other choice but to turn to help, and that was exactly the same as my experience. And I'm not speaking on behalf of you two, but I guess it could be similar. So my message, sort of reiteration, for this little chat is don't let it get to rock bottom or I have to take this journey now because I'm in such a dark place. I think there's enough of a network out there now to be able to hopefully identify it early through the education that there is now, but then actually being brave enough to speak about it before you potentially hit your rock bottom, I think is incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. And I remember, my personal experience might be the same for everyone, but I think sometimes you don't know that you need help until, and this is where like your trusted people and your close people to you, almost like that's where their work comes in. It's like, we all know when we're in a bad spot, you just get on with it and you're just like, oh, I'll deal with it down the line. And it's like talking to those, like actually when someone asks you, are you all right? It's like being honest with yourself and actually like taking that seriously, not just like bang it off. Because like you said, that's when you get down to rock bottom and then you're like, oh, like this is real bad now. Where you wish like however long beforehand you'd actually admitted, like, not defeat, but it's like admitting, yeah, I need some help.
Yeah, I think definitely something I've tried to do over the past few years is create that bubble of people around me that I know. There's only a couple guys in the cricket involved in that, but I know there's people that I trust and I can go to for advice like that. So I know that if there is a period of where I potentially am struggling or feel like I am, it's not just talking to a therapist or going around those routes. Like actually I've got 2 or 3 people I can talk to who are going to give me honest feedback about what they think and what I think. And I know that for me has massively helped in terms of that action point of, instead of just saying, okay, I've got my teammates and my mum and dad and whatever it might be, having people in place that that they're going to be able to be there for you, give you honest advice, honest feedback that is actually going to help you come to terms with things, I think. Because a lot of the time as well, I found that people sometimes feed you the line that you want, and you might go to them and say, and they say, you're right, and then you say, yeah, and then it's like, oh, phew, and then it's like, they can just move on because they've checked and stuff like that. Whereas actually, if people know that you're in a position, okay, might be a bit vulnerable at certain times, and they're going to be more likely to actually sit you down and say, look, mate, you're not doing this, you seem a bit on edge, seem a bit agitated, like, is everything going all right? I think that's helped me massively.
Yeah, it's like asking, are you okay, but like more than once.
In terms of the avenues to go down, I myself have used Sporting Chance as well, which I think is a great tool for us to be able to have, and the funding from the PCA is great, and obviously confidential helpline and obviously at the club as well. And just in terms of any final thoughts, lads, about the topics you discussed, or anything you want to add on?
Well, I'd just echo the Sporting Chance really, and going through the Professional Cricketers Trust to get there, opening up to somebody at my club that I needed help beyond, my own, what I thought at the time was me, can only help myself, and to have those sessions and then continue to have that connection even to this day, not as frequent as obviously back then, but there's support out there in many ways now. Yeah,
like I would just say, if you feel like something's wrong and you need help, just take action, and just like, it's, even though it feels scary, it's not actually as deep as you think it will be.
Yeah, I'd echo all that. I just think my final thoughts would be that, it is also a skill as well. Like we spoke about it earlier, that it does need practice. And I think the biggest initial thing I'd say is just take that first step, because I think it's a journey that you'll find out a lot about yourself, and you'll come out the other side and continue to work and feel good about yourself.
Well, thank you for your time, guys. Obviously a tough task to come in and be really open and honest, and I think cricket's one of those sports where even though we are playing against each other, we're all in it together and we're on the same road, and I think kind of the openness, honesty is what's going to help more cricketers kind of get to where they need to be in terms of mental health and well-being. I think just finally remember, as a PCA member, you do have access to a confidential helpline, which is 07780 008877.